Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm James.
And welcome to the Cornwall Property Podcast, where every week we bring you the latest news, hot topics and guidance around the Cornwall property market.
Stay tuned to be informed, inspired and to have any of your property related questions answered by trusted local property professionals.
Welcome back, I'm Dan.
I'm James.
And we are here for episode 69 of the Cornwall Property Podcast.
Wow.
We have a very special podcast today because we are joined by none other than Jeremy Bradley from CAD Architects. Hi, Jeremy.
Welcome. Hi, how you doing?
Thank you. You had nothing else to do today, did you?
No, it's great. Nice to be in the rural countryside.
That's it. Excellent. So, for those of you who don't know Jeremy, where have you been? But Jeremy is the Director of CAD Architects based in Truro. And Jeremy's here to add some extra value to the podcast and hopefully to our listeners and viewers. So, Jeremy, thank you ever so much for taking time to come and join us.
Thanks very much. Well done for doing these things.
Yeah, no, certainly we wait till the end. Thank us, Dan. So, Jeremy, who are you?
I'm Jeremy Bradley, CAD Architects based in Truro. We're about 26 staff. CAD Architects been around for about 20 years, a bit longer maybe than that. I've been there nearly 10. We've got 5 directors and we do property developments around Cornwall. A lot of our stuff is one-off houses and a lot of our stuff is property developments of 5, 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 houses.
So a very good, vast array of, you can do small time or you can do work with the larger developers as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Would you prefer?
I like a bit of both. The one-off houses are great. Travelling around Cornwall is fantastic. We go to some amazing coastal locations and look at some beautiful properties. Yeah. They are great fun to do.
And what I've seen from your work and your team's work is that you can offer so many different varieties of expertise as well, isn't it? The fact that you've got so many in your team, that there's so many people to bounce off, so many creative ideas and so many different areas of expertise as well.
That's one of the great things. I'm not the only director. There's 5 directors, and we all bounce off each other with expertise. Not only have we got multiple directors to deal with problems. We've got multiple disciplines. We've got an in-house planning consultant, which is great. Wow. We've got a heritage team. We've got a civils, site safety consultant, 3D visualisers, technicians, architectural technologists. So
it's nice to be able to keep it all in-house.
I think a lot of people underestimate how many different departments are involved with, proper architects and, different people that you need for doing development. It's not just about drawing some pretty pictures, which we'll come on to a bit later. But sounds like a
and
great...
working where we are in the centre of Truro is fantastic.
Ideal,
We're really central to other consultants that can come in and see us, people popping in off the street, which is great. Yeah. And working in Truro is great. All the guys love going and get the lunch and
absolutely on the infamous Lemon Street. Yeah,
exactly right.
That's a great street.
So what sort of things are you guys working on at the minute, Jeremy? Like, have you got an example maybe of a few projects you might be able to share?
As much as we're doing residential schemes, which we're doing barn conversions and schemes for 20 houses or 30 houses. I do a lot of leisure projects as well. Doing Truro City Football Club, stadium stuff, Cornwall FA new
Is that going ahead
headquarters. Oh, of course.
Yes, good. Right, excellent.
It's
taking the time.
It's on site at the moment.
Fantastic.
Now we're grading out the land as we speak.
Brilliant.
So we've got some technical details to the actual clubhouse itself.
Amazing.
But that's
we're going to be bringing Truro home.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right,
absolutely.
Good to hear.
So that's good. And then there's the leisure I'm doing Port Isaac Social Club. Leisure projects are great because there's a big benefit for a whole community. As much as it's nice to give a one-off person their dream home, community projects are great, really rewarding
so many
as
people
well.
benefit from your work, aren't they?
Yes.
That's always good to hear that side of things.
Big time.
And with regards to the naivety of it in terms of an architect, where and when you get involved with architects, I suppose, but from start to finish, you got the planning process, I guess.
Yeah.
What bit do you guys? When do people get in touch with you guys? Like what stage is it?
People can contact us pretty much typically when someone's bought a property and they come and say help. Obviously we've got repeat clients that will come and see us a lot earlier than that, or sometimes prospective purchasers, they'll come and see us for expert advice on that. But if it's a one-off house, it's typically they've just bought the property, or they've got some new ideas, and can they come out and have a look at the property and see what you think? Fantastic. And that's typically when we go out. But we do firefighting issues later on down the line if people come into problems. Especially our heritage team, which is a whole group upstairs, who come into problem with listed buildings and complications with conservation officers and
we
stuff
know too much about that, would we, Dan?
No, I had no grey hairs before I started listed buildings, working on listed buildings, and now look at the state of me. So, no, crikey, it's a completely different animal. But what's the key is to having experts who are specialists in those areas, because you can be a jack of all, but you want to be masters. You want to be working with masters in their trades, and the fact that you've got specialists in those specific areas. Is
and a lot of our directors obviously been here 10, 20, 30 years, born here. There's a lot of expertise in that. I think when someone comes to you as a professional, they want to know so many solutions about how they can help. A lot of people don't forget that the architect's not just there to do the drawings. We're a lead consultant. We help them with a whole range of consultants that you might need in an application. A tree consultant, a ground investigation report, a flood risk assessment, that the lead consultant on those things.
Obviously, regulations are constantly changing. Well, they're changing very well. We spoke before we came on air about the changes in flows. We've got part F, L, O. There's just so many challenges at the minute. So the fact that you've got a team of your experience, hopefully you can all bounce off each other's help and get through those.
Even before you go to the technical side of the building control, there's constant changes in the planning sector, and there's constant challenges in trying to get an application registered.
So we're talking about the PIP side of things now as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Within the different types of planning applications you can do, but then even when you've done that application, the validation checklist is enormous. And if you haven't done a flood risk assessment, or if you haven't done a tree survey, then you can get caught up in loads of delays.
I know. I'm hogging the mic here, James, so please jump in.
No change there, then.
When there's so many different stages of planning, isn't there? So people, I know I'm generally asked, should I get an outline planning? A pre-app in? Do I not get pre-app? But I personally don't see a massive bit of value in a pre-app. I don't think for the amount you have to put in, you may as well just put in an application.
And the amount of time you have to wait for a pre-app, which is sometimes as long as a normal planning application.
But you've now got the PIPs, haven't you?
Planning in principle, which is great. We've done quite a few of those in the last 12 months.
Quicker as well, aren't they?
Quicker, simpler.
And what are they?
I think the outline application was meant to be that before, but actually the criteria for outline application has become more and more litigious as we go on.
I'm just conscious that we obviously know what a PIP is, but for those that don't know, what is a PIP?
Planning in principle is almost the simplest form of application. So if you've got a house with a block of land out the back, you can put a red line boundary around that, and you can submit a form and say, is this in principle or in accordance to Cornwall planning policy for another dwelling on here?
Do you have to submit extra with that, Jeremy? Is it literally as simple as get a title plan, put a red line on it?
No, so you don't have to do design and access statement. You don't have to do the ecology survey. You don't have to do the full topographical survey. Yeah. So you'll get some response back from that. But that is allowing people to move forward with a bit more confidence.
Yeah, de-risk it a little bit for them, just to know that they would be able to get something before they then start spending other monies on different things.
Yes, that's right.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, very helpful. So then after PIP, if you went for PIP, the next level would be?
The next level, you can do a pre-app. Or you can do an outline.
So you'd see it as is it 4 stages really you'd look at it as?
Generally.
Stage 1 being a PIP.
Doing a PIP. Well, even pre-stage 1 is, do I need planning permission? That's a real questionable thing. You really don't know whether.
No. Am I even wasting my time in thinking?
No. That's yeah, exactly. But then a planning in principle, then you've got a pre-app, then you've got an outline planning application. If you've got a block of land which for 5 houses, or you think I can get 4 or 5 houses, and then perhaps a PIP might not be enough. Yep. You're really going to have to delve into a little bit more design and a little bit more technical reassurance for the planners that you're going to help them out.
I'm assuming they may come back and say, well, look, in principle, it could work, but I'd recommend going for outline planning permission. That's generally the route.
Well, that's when you start. Come and see us, and we'll try and give you a steer as to what you feel might be needed.
So would you expect people to do the PIP on their own? Like, for example, James and I would submit our PIPs ourselves, or so I'm just thinking here the listeners may be thinking, oh, I've got a bit of plot of land, or I've got something.
You can try, but it's still a risk. You know, we've got an in-house, pretty much for the last 12 months now, we've got an in-house planning consultant, and Laura, she's doing a lot of our PIPs,
right?
Because we can tell you sometimes whether even a PIP's
wasted time or not.
Exactly right. Yeah. But putting it through Laura has been fantastic for us.
Excellent. Just that's someone you can bounce off as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Internally as well, it's really good.
What's that? Sorry?
Having them internally within the business is
fantastic.
Ideal.
It's transformed our business in
the
last 12 months. Yeah.
Well, it's all those moving parts, isn't it? When it's out of your control, the fact that you've got control of all those aspects now just makes it a lot more streamlined, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, look, guys, with this episode here, we've got this market update episode. So, as always, James and I have picked an article that we'd want to share with you guys just for some updates, and just to keep your fingers on the pulse as well as ours. Obviously, we're here. Why we're here? Well, we're all interested in property. We love Cornwall, and as we know, the issue with Cornwall is that there's a lot of empty buildings on the market, or maybe not on the market, and there's a lot of people needing homes with the whole Cornwall housing crisis as we all know it. So we are trying to inform, educate, inspire you guys to get involved with property, be it investing, and just one, make yourself some money, but two, hopefully bring some of these redundant, empty, derelict properties back to the market, to help house these people that need homes.
Absolutely, and just remember you can get in contact with us here on our social media platforms such as Facebook and also Instagram on the Cornwall Property podcast, and like many of you do, you can send us an email on podcast@cl-property.com, and we are here waiting for your questions. So what have we got, Dan?
I will kick us off. So one that caught my eye, and it's actually a question that I'm asked a lot when I bump into people or on social media. They message me, is buy-to-let dead? Should I even bother getting involved with property these days? So the article that caught my eye with this, and I think it answers it quite well actually, is on This is money. This is money. And again, with anyone who's listening or watching the podcast, if you look on the show notes, there's a link to all of these articles so you can have a look in more depth. But essentially, the article is, have higher interest rates broken buy-to-let? So as a mortgage landlord, we are mortgage landlords as well, so we don't have an endless bit of money. The reason how we invest, we work with investors. We buy a property, we develop the property, and then we put a mortgage on the property and hold it for the long term and rent it out. That's our model. That's what we do. So obviously we have rent coming in, but we also have outgoings such as the mortgage. And the difference is now that due to the interest rate hikes, the mortgage payments have gone up. So we always, those regular listeners know that we're very contingent on our numbers anyway. So if we know the interest rates are at 5%, we'd be doing our numbers on 7%, just trying to future-proof it. But generally, you'll find that your lenders are doing that anyway to stress test and make sure that they're covering their backsides as well. So what we're finding now is that the big changes over the last 12, 18 months is those size of those interest rate hikes and how that has affected buy-to-let landlords who are with quite highly geared on the mortgages side of things. Because in theory, the data on this one is that since the day of the buy-to-let mortgages since mid-1990s, landlords have flocked into the sector with debt turbocharging its growth. Between 2000 and 2022, the number of privately rented homes in England more than doubled to 4.6 million. And 2/3 of existing landlords now are reliant actually on mortgages. So I don't think that's a surprise really, and the fact that you're leveraging just helps you to grow. And I think it's a good way, a good model. It's working for us, and it works for so many. We've not invented this wheel. It's something that's been going on for quite some time. Now, many of these landlords have managed to weather various tax regulatory stages, like Section 24 that I know James has mentioned quite a few times, with tax changes, or you can't offset certain things in your accounts and your expenses.
Mortgage interest, yeah.
That's it. So obviously, landlords who are experienced landlords, they've weathered these sort of storms as such over the coming years. But this is a whole new storm with these interest rates, and this is what the article is relating to. So the average 2-year fixed buy-to-let mortgage, with generally, if you're looking at a 40% deposit, you're looking at 5.2%, and that's according to Moneyfacts. So that's the interest rate you're paying. Now, interest-only mortgages are obviously going to see the biggest hit here, but landlords are now pretty much doubling their expenses with the mortgage side of things. It's not as profitable as it once was, but what's the problem going to be here? It's just going to be passed on to the tenants, isn't it? The landlords, there's only so much they can take a hit. Well, what's it going to mean? It's no surprises that by these interest rates rising, the landlords are taking a more, they're having to pay more outgoings. Well, they're not. What's going to happen? Well, as a result, you're then going to have to increase your rents to be able to justify it. If you don't, you're not going to be able to afford it. It's a failing business, isn't it? They're going to be selling up, essentially. So what they found out is actually a lot more. If you go in to read the article, I won't go into it all now and bore you all, but essentially a lot. I think it was a million of sales have been because of landlords selling up during retirement.
It's just not worth it for them anymore.
No, exactly that. Especially the older landlords that aren't needing it so much anymore. They're trying to cash in, pension pot side of things. So the younger landlords, that's another article actually that I haven't included here, but if you go on to This Is Money at the moment, that article was there too. But are there enough younger investors and developers that actually are going to be able to pick up the pieces here to ensure that the private rental sector can keep moving? Because the more regulations and stipulations that they put in makes it more or less appealing to get involved with the market, and then these interest rates hikes and the outgoings that are costing more, it's going to increase the rents. It makes it harder for people to actually afford to get on that rental ladder, let alone the blooming property buying ladder. So it's an interesting article, I thought. Is buy-to-let dead? I personally don't think it is, but it's just becoming very, very, very difficult to get started. And ultimately, what's going to happen? It's the tenants are the ones that are going to get a bit more of the brunt, really, with the higher rents. Essentially, it's the same with the administration charges of letting agents. That was another rule that came in a few years back, where letting agents used to be able to charge an administration fee when you're starting the application, and that was essentially how they made quite a nice wad of money on the front end. But there's the legalities where you can no longer, as a letting agent, charge administration fees on the front end. So that was a big hit for a lot of letting agents. So they've had to re-engineer their model for those that took quite a bit of reliability on that income, and we've had to just manoeuvre around that. And what happens? Well, the payment has to come from either increased on percentages that letting agents change, or they have to get creative in different ways that they can bring back that money. But ultimately, James, is buy-to-let dead for you?
I think, like you've said, I don't think it is. I think it's definitely going to be getting tighter, and I think you'll get a lot of the sort of basic landlords that maybe have one extra property on top of their own residence, where they don't have the luxury of owning it in a limited company where they can offset all of the mortgage interest, where they get 100%. As you mentioned, Section 24. For those of you who don't know, it's just a rule that's in place now. You can only offset 20% of the mortgage interest, and a lot of buy-to-let landlords, they are on interest-only mortgage, like Dan and I are. All of ours are through a limited company, so you only get the 20% tax on that, but you get to have all of the offset of your mortgage interest. You're only paying the corporation tax, but that is one aspect. The other one that I would say is that in 2018 there were some amazing mortgage rates, like really the best we've seen in a very long time. So all the buy-to-let landlords, they all jumped on that rate, and they jumped on that for a 5-year fix, as you would. So 5 years later, 2023, here we are, all those landlords are coming off that rate, and they're going to have to renew their mortgages, option A, onto something that's pretty grim, and their margins are going to be decreased so much that they're just going to say, do you know what, we're going to sell. So always trying to see the positives. There's going to be a lot more stock and opportunity out there, but some will hang on to their properties, but who will it be passed to? Like you said, it will go on to the tenants. So there's going to be a lot more to come. We're only in April. I know the year's going fast, but it will but interesting to see it in September, because I think a lot more landlords would have sold up, but there still is money to be made, but we can only prey on the mortgage rates. But it is, it's squeezing people for sure.
Jamie, the clients that you work with, do you have many build-to-rent developers, or are they more build-to-sell, or a variety perhaps?
We've got obviously developers who are doing housing schemes. We've got property owners who they're second homes, so that less worried. The larger properties, they're less worried about that.
Of course.
But we've got other ones that are doing student lets and stuff like that. So we've got a mix.
So I'm sure. Do you see things are slowing down at all on that side of things, or
not really? No. Cornwall's very fruitful still. Everyone still sees as an escape from perhaps what's happening up country.
Yeah. I think we've always said that as well. It seems we're in our own little bubble down here, aren't we? Really.
We are. Yeah.
It's definitely that side of things that we see. And again, we're actively investing still. We've been doing lots of viewings this week. We've got 6-7 projects currently in construction. We're
super busy, still looking for employees. Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. So again, don't always go off what the press are saying, I think is a key one, but always just look at the facts and what's it telling you. Well, people are still moving forward, and as I say, it might be the fact that this sort of news is putting a lot of people off. Well, happy days. That's a great opportunity for you guys to get involved. Obviously, we are not financial advisors. It's always seek professional advice, but we've got appetite, and so we know so many others have.
And there is lots of opportunity. Yeah. We try and bring in. Well, we do bring lots of unencumbered properties, both commercial and residential. You just got to go out there and find them. But there is, there's still money to be made and homes to be provided. More importantly, so.
What have you got for us, James?
Well, I've got one. We were talking about, expensive buy-to-let rates, but I found a headline that's quite interesting that I think kind of just reiterates that there is still appetite out there, that developers are still developing. My headline was "Bridge Loan Market Hits 5 billion in Completions," and this was an article I found on Mortgage Strategy written by Apex Bridging, who are a bridging firm. And for those of you who are listening and viewing who don't know what a bridge loan is, pretty much do visualise a bridge. It is short-term finance before you then exit onto a longer-term mortgage, or whether you're going to sell. So, for example, Dan mentioned about where we work with investors, so quite often they fund all of our purchases and our development finance to develop those projects. Other people won't have those investors, and they simply go to the bank. And let's be honest, banks make their money from lending money, and they want to lend money for a long period of time. Bridging loan is the complete opposite. It's short-term finance for maybe 6 months, for a year. It is very expensive, but it stops a landlord or a developer having to sign up for a long period of time just while they do that development. Literally, they get in, they get out, then they exit or they sell. So 5 billion is a lot of money. And the article goes on to say that Apex Bridging Managing Director Chris Hodgkinson comments, with the exception of the market dip seen in 2020 due to initial pandemic market restrictions, the bridging sector has gone from strength to strength in recent years, and we're now seeing considerably more lent via bridging loans on an annual basis, even when compared to the pre-pandemic market in 2019. So it's actually stronger now, before all the craziness happened in the world, which is, showing really good appetite. It goes on to say that there's a common misconception that bridging is really only utilised in times of crisis in order to save a transaction from collapse. And while this is certainly the case to some extent, it's far the only reason that many buyers and investors utilise bridging loans. So we said about getting, a bridging loan very, very quickly. Sometimes a mortgage company might pull the plug on somebody, from somebody. For example, in this day and age that we live in, we have mortgage companies that would pull the plug because suddenly their stress tests are a lot more than what they were, 2 months ago when you were applying for the mortgage.
The November last year with the changes in the government with the mini budget, that was overnight, wasn't it? People get pulled overnight.
Yeah, which is horrible, especially say Dan and James, two wives buying their own property together, and suddenly they've done it on their income, and then Dan loses his job or James loses his job. Then suddenly the mortgage company is like, "I'm really sorry, guys, but obviously you don't meet the criteria for your earnings." And it's like, "But we're not going to lose out on our dream home. What can we do? We've got to do it." You get a bridge loan. You generally have to put a higher deposit down, more like 30%, which is quite a lot, but you can just get that money bridged until you then find a better solution. So finally, I'll just end on this. It said investment purchases were the main reason. That's why I brought this one up. So investment developers, still have appetite, accounting for 23% of all loans issued, followed by chain breaks. That's where, for whatever reason, the mortgage company might pull out or the chain breaks. That was 20%. Heavy refurbishment on properties that are being developed, that's 13%, followed by unregulated finance was 11%. And finally, business purposes at 9%. So people are still taking bridging loans, but the main clientele there is developers doing, stuff with property. It's not just in Cornwall, that's all over the UK, but it says to me that there's big appetite, and it's bigger now than what it was before the pandemic.
Yeah, no surprising. I think it's a sensible way, and I think we're very fortunate. We work with investors, and we've got investors that want to be working with us, and they fund our developments. But for those that are needing money and they've got a project there and they can't necessarily fund it, then the bridging is a no-brainer, really, isn't it? As long as it stacks, obviously do your homework, don't go for the first lender, always get a really good mortgage broker to do the homework for you. They'll have the relationships, they'll be able to help you just steer the ship to the right island. But I think no surprises. No, I think it's great news. It just shows again there's appetite, there's people out there, and it's strong.
Absolutely, and for the listeners and viewers, most of them be thinking, "But I've got no money. I'm never going to be able to invest. I've got my own property, but I wouldn't be able to invest in one of these unencumbered or empty properties." Well, you don't have to have people with money, or you don't have to have money. You can actually go to a bridging loan. That's exactly what they do. They bridge you until you can find a solution to either sell or rent it out and get a mortgage on it. But the only advice that I would say, and always do seek professional advice, bridging loan is not cheap. It is expensive, and you do really need to go through the terms and conditions. And I would advise going through a broker, to talk you and guide you through it, because let's just say scenario A, you're getting a bridging loan to buy a property, to then do it up, redevelop it, and then you're going to sell it. Let's say your bridging loan was for 8 months and you're getting to month 7, you've only just finished the project because
where's my planning permission?
Where's my planning permission? Exactly. Or you're just not selling the property and you need to buy some time. Like some of the penalties for not paying back a bridging loan on time can be pretty hefty and below all the profit.
Very anxious clients.
I can only imagine, Jeremy. You have a lot of people, and I guess
we do have developers that deal with bridging loans and take that little risk in between a planning application, and when they're expecting a planning process to take 8 weeks and it's taking 13, 14 weeks, that can be very stressful, obviously, and very expensive in terms of the bridging loan.
Yeah, you've got to be careful with it, but it's also a very good project, solution for projects. If you don't have investors, this is your answer really, but do read the terms and conditions.
Definitely. And the one I'd also chuck in there as well is it's not just the percentage you're looking at. There's so many add-on fees.
Oh gosh,
so
arrangement fee.
Well worth. So you might get, this bridging company's only going to charge me 1%. But this one's only going to charge me 0.8%, but the 0.8% charges you a massive arrangement fee or an administrative fee that actually outweighs the slightly more percent. Just look at the whole offer. Don't just look at the percentage.
It's not like buying fuel, 167. That's what it's going to be per litre. It's a lot of hidden fees. Yeah, definitely. And do look at those penalties.
So always ask your broker overall, what is the cheapest product here? So that's definitely. But so you've got experience with the bridging side of things as well, Jeremy.
Well, we've got mixed range of developers that come in from one-man band partnerships, larger companies. Some of the larger companies have got their own finances in place, but there's a lot of background money floating around and financial insecurity sometimes.
And be contingent. Like we always try and say, look, if we think a project's going to be 12 months, it might be worth just taking the loan for 18 months.
Absolutely.
But just make sure you've got a no early exit fee kind of in there, so you could pay back earlier at no charge. I think that would be the most sensible thing to do, is just cover your backside. Just what is the worst that can happen? Well, it doesn't come back in time. Well, how do I mitigate that risk? Take it for longer, but just make sure that you're not going to get stung for taking it for longer. Obviously, you've got it then covered, but you could repay early as long as there's no fee. So these are all little things that, again, your mortgage broker will be able to help you with. And hopefully that helps give you a little bit more guidance, really. So, guys, this is then the part of the episode. What we'll do is Dan and I have got a commercial property that's currently on the market that I'd like to share with you guys, which is a bit of an opportunity to get involved with property and bring some commercial into residential market and help bridge this gap with private rental sector. And James has got a residential property. So for those that are viewing, you'll be able to see this in real time on YouTube. And for those that are listening on your audio devices, there is a link to the advert in the show notes if you want to have a little look yourself. So Jeremy, you can see this one with me here. So the property I've picked is in beautiful Bodmin. It's 21 4th Street in Bodmin. It is a mixed-use commercial property for sale. So it's a nice size, 5,700, well, nearly 5,800 square foot. For those that can see, I'm just going through the photos now. So it's an old commercial property, shop on the ground floor. Looks like an old Clinton's cards kind of shop, really. And upstairs, you've got 2 floors above. Very quirky and rugged exterior.
It's an optical illusion, doesn't it? Like either get a survey or has that picture been squashed? I don't know.
There is a very quirky rear access, but what I like about it is you've got separate access at the rear, which is great, because with a commercial, if you wanted to try and do some work upstairs in residential, then you want to kind of separate that access. It's a paramount that you do that. What also caught my eye is the fact that it's got quite a steep pitch, and there's a roof light in there already, so a roof window in there, which shows that there might be opportunity to go up in that roof space as well. So you can see in the pictures again, really large open commercial space as well. So downstairs, you could just split the front off, make it a small commercial downstairs, and maybe do something with a back half. And there's obviously 2 floors above. But yeah, it just caught my eye. It's a perfect example. Beautiful period staircase. Yeah, beautiful. And it's, again, you get the feel just from the images how spacious this actually is. Again, rear access, which is good. The plot size is great. You can see as well from the kind of like aerial shots on image 11, that you've got access from car park as well. So you can see there's a car park at the back, a large commercial public car park by the looks of it, and that then gives you access to the rear. So I really like this one because you've got the commercial downstairs. You could de-risk it a little bit, keep it commercial on the front, elevation on the road, the town side, the street side, but there's so much you can do with the floor space there. So yeah, this is one that caught my eye. Guide price, or the fixed price even, it says here, is £250,000. It's on with Alpine, Blue Alpine. Now, not local. These are London agents, which again, interesting. But it is grade 2 listed. Again, beautiful. Of course it is. Why would Dan not go for a property that was a little bit more straightforward? But Jeremy, what are your thoughts? If I show you that,
I think it's quite a good property. The balance on the street side of the actual commercial side's attractive. A little bit worrisome in the rear elevation, wobbly window. Yeah. But to have all the extra space at the back, good connection with. I know sometimes you can get away with not having parking because it's a sustainable location in the town centre. But people want to know whether they can deal with a car, and that's great. And you've got this huge overgrown back area here, which is
amenity space, isn't it?
Amenity space is fantastic. So yeah.
And again, whilst I've got you, Jeremy, it's great to share the value with the listeners. So obviously, with it being a town centre location, as you say, you don't necessarily always need to have parking. But what we're finding from experience is what planning would like to see is that you've got other options for tenants. So bike storage, obviously, that's a big one for amenities.
Bike storage is part of that. That you're trying to do sustainable links, whether you have to show where's the nearest bus stop. If there's no cars, then can you park a bike? So yeah, definitely. Those are all part of the things that they're trying to encourage you to
consider, I suppose.
Consider, absolutely.
Yeah, brilliant. James, what have you got for us then?
I have got a full renovation, surprise. I've got a 3-bedroom semi-detached property in Loo in Cornwall. It's on with Pope's estate agents. Again, I don't think they're local, but it's an auction property which is having here a guide price of £115,000 to £135,000 plus fees. It says viewing is strictly done by appointment only. So it's a 3-bed. It's got a living room, dining room, kitchen, shower room, rear elevated terrace garden. It's got river glimpses as well, and as we just talking about amenities and things, it's a short distance to town, local bus routes, and also a beach as well. There is talk in here that it also might present itself as being a good conversion for 2 flats as well, which I know, Dan, by looking on your face, you're probably on the floor plan already. But yes. It's definitely the type of property that we are talking about on the podcast for listeners and viewers. It's unencumbered. Unfortunately, this one is a probate, and it's been empty now for about 7 months. So I think this could be a really nice property.
I like it. Yeah.
I think it already is. It just needs some love.
It's a lovely old period property. They're always big, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're always big properties.
High ceilings, etc.
Got 3 good rooms on the front there, which is really good. I think the bathrooms and the kitchens are the ones that haven't been touched for so long that you'd probably be looking to do. Can we do a rear extension on that to have an improved kitchen extension out the back there? That was certainly, I'd be looking at that first.
Adding that value.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Big family home to me.
Yeah,
really.
That's a killer kitchen, that one there.
That's a beauty. That's the wow factor for the wrong reasons. So no, definitely you want to be making that. You want to be looking
at that little opportunity out the back there to extend. But as I said, that might be the main thing you're trying to look at. Bit of a crushed bathroom there at the back there, but you've got that L-shaped room. It's good though. Drainage, it's nice elevated views, which is great.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Nobody wants a shaded area where there's no sunshine coming in. So
I'll be interested to see how and where or what this one goes for. Actually, when is the auction, James?
It's got the date.
Those interested.
Although I did see it was actually reduced on the 13th of April, so not that long ago. But
auctioneers Clive Empson, brochure attached. Oh, well, guys, if you are interested, again, in the show notes there's a link to this property, and you can have a little nosy yourself. And if you do, let us know how you get on. Let us know how you get on. I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are.
Value to be added there, though, for sure.
For sure, definitely. Well, guys, thank you, Jeremy, for your input on that one as well. But guys, that brings us to the end of today's episode 69. Madness. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Jeremy, thank you ever so much for your time and the value added. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. And Jeremy is going to be sticking around for next week's episode as well, which is the Q&A episode. So we picked out some questions for Jeremy, architectural questions. So I'm sure you have got some questions to throw at the expert architect here in the room. So if you do, get in touch, and thank you ever so much for listening.
Absolutely. And just remember, you can get in touch with us on our social media platforms such as Facebook and Instagram. Alternatively, you can get in contact with us on email, which is podcast@cl-property.com, and we love hearing from you.
That's it.
Thank you very much, Jeremy, for being on the show.
Thank you.
Well, guys, it's a goodbye from me.
Bye from me.